World War I didn't start overnight. It started with a dangerous idea: nationalism. In the late 1800s, Europe was boiling. People were obsessed with their nation's pride. Germans, French, Serbs, Italians, all convinced their country was destined for greatness. But that pride turned toxic. Small nations like Serbia wanted independence. Big empires like Austria-Hungary and Russia wanted to crush or control them. It was a ticking time bomb waiting for a single spark. And that spark? The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, which we'll cover in the next episode. Follow this series so you don't miss how Europe stumbled into the deadliest war the world had ever seen. Before World War I, the great powers weren't just fighting in Europe, they were fighting for the world. Britain had the biggest empire in history, ruling over a quarter of the planet. France had colonies across Africa and Asia, but Germany was late to the game and hungry for its share of power. This scramble for colonies turned Europe into a global chessboard. Every new colony, every naval base, every trade route became a reason for nations to clash. And as their empires grew, so did their rivalry. The world was now divided into armed camps, watching each other with suspicion. Next episode, the naval arms race, when battleships became the new measure of power. Follow this series to see how the world slid closer to war. In the early 1900s, Europe's rivalry moved to the seas. Britain ruled the waves with the most powerful navy on earth, until Germany challenged them. Then, in 1906, Britain launched the HMS Dreadnought, a revolutionary battleship so advanced it made every other warship obsolete overnight. Germany scrambled to build its own dreadnoughts, and soon both nations were in a shipbuilding frenzy. Each new battleship wasn't just steel, it was a message: we are ready for war. Next episode, the web of alliances, how secret treaties locked Europe into disaster. Follow this series so you don't miss it. By the early 1900s, Europe was tied together by a dangerous web of alliances. On one side, you had the Triple Entente: Britain, France, and Russia. On the other, the Triple Alliance: Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. These alliances were meant to keep the peace, but they actually guaranteed a bigger war. If one country was attacked, the others were bound to join. So when tensions rose, Europe wasn't just looking at a small fight. They were staring at a chain reaction that could drag the whole continent into war. Next episode, militarism: why every country was preparing for the war they swore they didn't want. Follow this series to see how the countdown to 1914 sped up. Before World War I, Europe was obsessed with its armies. Germany built the most powerful land force in Europe. Britain doubled down on its navy. France, Russia, and Austria-Hungary all expanded their armies too. Military leaders drew up war plans in advance, like Germany's Schlieffen Plan, so that when conflict came, they'd be ready to strike fast. But here's the problem. When everyone is armed to the teeth and waiting for an excuse, war becomes almost certain. Next episode, the Balkans: why this small region was called the powder keg of Europe. Follow this series to see how the spark finally lit the fuse. In the early 1900s, the Balkans were the most explosive region in Europe, and everyone knew it. Serbia, Greece, Bulgaria, and others had just fought wars to break free from the Ottoman Empire. Nationalism was rising fast, and Serbia dreamed of uniting all Slavs under its flag. But Austria-Hungary had other plans. It wanted to control the region and crush Serbian influence. Russia stepped in, backing Serbia as the protector of the Slavs. The result? A tense standoff where one wrong move could ignite all of Europe. Next episode, the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the spark that set the powder keg on fire. Follow this series so you don't miss it. On June 28, 1914, a single event changed history forever. Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary was visiting Sarajevo when a group of young Serbian nationalists plotted to kill him. After a failed attempt earlier in the day, fate intervened. The Archduke's car took a wrong turn. Gavrilo Princip seized the chance and fired the fatal shots. This assassination didn't just kill a man, it lit the fuse on Europe's powder keg. Within weeks, alliances dragged the continent into the deadliest war the world had ever seen. Next episode, the July Crisis: how Europe's leaders stumbled toward war in a matter of weeks. Follow this series to see the countdown to World War I. After the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, Austria-Hungary didn't wait. They issued an ultimatum to Serbia. The demands were harsh. Serbia had to suppress anti-Austrian propaganda, dissolve nationalist groups, and allow Austro-Hungarian officials to investigate inside its borders. Serbia agreed to most of the demands but rejected the most intrusive ones. Austria-Hungary saw this as defiance and began preparing for war. A single diplomatic document pushed Europe closer to conflict, proving how fragile peace had become. Next episode, the July Crisis. How Europe's leaders stumbled toward a war no one wanted, but everyone was preparing for. Follow this series to see how alliances turned a regional conflict into a global war. In July 1914, Europe teetered on the brink of disaster. After Austria-Hungary's ultimatum to Serbia, diplomacy failed. Russia backed Serbia, Germany backed Austria-Hungary, and France and Britain prepared for war. Every country issued warnings, ultimatums, and military mobilizations. Leaders hoped for peace, but were trapped by alliances and military plans. Within weeks, a regional conflict in the Balkans spiraled into a global crisis. The stage was set for World War I. Next episode, the outbreak of World War I, how Europe's armies marched and the war everyone feared finally began. Follow this series to see the first shots fired.